The control that influence.
The Confused-Obote Foundation is under Walubiri, not under Jimaken.
No, yes. That is true. Except that the Confused-Obote Foundation is the foundation under which Uganda House Investments owns and controls Uganda House.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I was asking, who's in charge of that?
Yes.
Who's in charge of that? Don't first answer me.
I'm giving you the context. And so the financial wing of the foundation, which is Uganda House Investments, controls Uganda House on behalf of the party. Credible, you know. But I have argued that in Africa, the most urgent thing we need is leadership. And in this country, Uganda, I think the most urgent thing we also need is leadership. And that politically, I don't think we need more political parties. I think we need more leadership. So whether that leadership emerges from NRA or from the opposition, it's unlikely to emerge from NRA because the NRA's rulership of 40 years has provided the situation in which people are now about themselves, me, myself, and I, rather than a direction for our country or indeed for our communities. So that should come from the opposition.
The Spy Uganda, the Spy Television, Andrew Irumba Live, with my senior elder here, Comrade Joseph Ochieno. Joseph Ochieno is the permanent spokesperson for the late Milton Obote, both alive and dead. But he's also the former spokesperson for the UPC government. I hope I'm correct.
No, the UPC party, not as the government.
UPC party.
I was too young to be in government.
UPC party.
UPC party.
Okay. Mr. Joseph Ochieno is also a leader in the current UPC government. I hesitate to say he's the president because there is a contestation between him and James Akena. He went to court and won the case. In other words, he should be the current president of UPC as per the law. However, as per the gun, Jim Akena is still the leader of UPC. Nice to meet you, comrade.
Bambi,
how is that?
Bambi for the party.
How is that? How is that introduction? As per the law, you're supposed to be the president. As per the gun, Jim Akena is the president.
And Peter Walubiri.
And Peter Walubiri.
Because there's some deal in between there. But as per the gun, Jim Akena occupies Uganda House. Walubiri has some files basically somewhere in his legal thing. It's a bit of a mess. It's a mess that is very unfortunate, considering the fact that the other time I was having a conversation with you and you were reminding me of how I had spent a lot of time in exile.
Over 17 years.
And how I was fighting.
Youthful years.
How I was fighting for restoration of multipartism, with the hope that when that is restored, we would have politics of civility, that political parties would function and operate, and that would challenge this NRM Museveni's incompetent regime on issues. But just like most of the other political organizations, some of whose identity I don't know, ideological identity I don't know, UPC about which I'm very clear, I don't think with the confusion we have in the leadership, we're able to provide the sufficient critique that is required for NRA and provide a clear opposition, a rather alternative to the majority of the citizens of this country.
Okay, fine.
And as I know it's in relation to that you want to have a conversation with me about where we are today as a political party.
This was introductory remarks.
Yes.
Comrade Ochieno, we want to go straight to today's topic. I've been seeing NRM preparing themselves because they see the general elections are at the door. You know, NRM has actually already collected money worth than 6.7 billion shillings from its own membership. They already reached by 6.7 billion from its own membership. So even if the Electoral Commission said we don't have money now, NRM will say our candidates can go on. We have money. When you look at UPC, Jim Akena is still complaining about the law amended that says, but there is no money for you. You get it? When you look at other parties, I don't know what they are doing. You look at their delegates conference. Now, for me, I've known all the time that a delegates conference is the biggest gathering of a party. Because then you'll have a representation from across the country. All the 127 or 26 districts plus other what they call interest parties?
Yeah, interested parties and law units, yes. Yes.
No, there are these special interest groups.
Yeah,
That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, okay.
All those will be represented. You cannot have that representation at Kamocha here in a small room. You cannot. That's why NRM goes to Nambole. Because, the people are going to come from across the country. Accommodation. Yesterday I was hosting somebody here from PPP, People's Progressive Party, this one of Bidandisala. He told me the last time they had a delegates conference, they went to Entebbe and looked for the biggest hotel with the biggest, what they call compound, gardens. They put their conference there. But PPP, he said they had sleep in the hotel for 3 days, brainstorming. Because Mr. Ochieno, a combination from 127 districts of Uganda with special interest groups coming together to have one idea that we would all push as a party. But people came with thousands of ideas, but you want to crystallize and get one. That would take some time and will take quite a lot of brains to think. So that is the imagination of a delegates conference, that people are going to come from different parts of Uganda with different ideas. But finally, you'll have to bring together all those ideas into one. That one that comes out is what the party is going to sell out now in the general election. Isn't that the idea?
Yeah.
Now you have the leader, the opposition leading party, having their conference here at Kamocha.
What exactly happened in Kamocha?
A delegates conference.
What was involved? You are the journalist. Me, I was not invited.
We were blocked from accessing, so we did not access. Apart from waiting for them.
Why were you blocked?
Apart from waiting for them, waiting for the white smoke to come out, like they're electing the Pope to come out and now address us that this and this happened. That Bob Wayne had a contestant, but they agreed and he pulled out, and so he came out and opposed. I don't know. That's what they told us. Secretary General, same stay. The spokesperson said they are the ones telling us. But as a journalist, we should be going to the field, to the gardens, to pick the food ourselves, not to come and pick for us and say, now have this one. No, for me, I want to pick from the garden. I have arrived at the garden.
Maybe they're fearing tear gas.
The journalists did not carry tear gas. And this time round, in the history of the noobs gatherings, it's only this time round that the noob people gathered and they had no tear gas canister inside from the police. All other gatherings, including election of the smallest units in their villages, police always intervenes and disrupts them. It is only this, when they are having a delegates conference, that police was not aware. They were caught unaware.
Maybe they feared being blocked by
police
from different places, maybe.
That's what I'm saying. They were caught unaware. Because this time police did not come anywhere. But NUP has been disrupted even at the lowest level of the elections, the village level. Police is always aware. At NUP level, I mean at delegates level, police and the JAT and the military, they were not aware. So, my point is this, comrade. What are the lessons as we move to 2026 general elections? What did you learn? What did you see? How prepared is UPC, for instance? NRM, yesterday NRM was started picking now nomination forms. What is up with UPC? And we learn from this.
I think the state of the parties is mixed.
The state of the parties?
Yes, is mixed. I think NRA is at its better self than last year.
Very good. NRM is better organized this time round.
NRM, yes.
NRM, not NRA.
No, they're NRM.
NRM,
they're the same.
National Resistance Movement. NRA is the old one.
No.
This is now a party, an organization.
They're the same. But NRM...
So, no, sometimes you confuse.
No, NRM are in a better position this time, and they're much more organized this time than they were last time.
Than the previous elections.
It is true that some people are complaining. It's true a number of people are challenging it. Is it true that some of the fights, particularly some of the grassroots elections? But I think when it now comes, materially, I rarely, people think I don't give credit to NRA, but
this is the first time.
But I state things as they are. So in the recent times, the fact that people seem to genuinely look for their headquarters in Chadondo Road and do their numbers, and that in some cases, particularly some of the parliamentary seats, parliamentary seats, you've got candidates going for primaries, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, sometimes 7, shows that there's a reasonable interest. So one, interest, but then two, organization, as you said, in terms of their ability to mobilize and organize their people. So 3, I know one particular case where I think 2 days ago a contestant cried foul that her name had been removed deliberately in order to allow somebody,
the powerful people.
Actually,
it's not only one lady. Only that you saw the cries of one lone. I have interviewed 7.
I was going to talk
they have come to me. 7. Let me even tell you. One of them is from Chenjojo, where the current MP is Deputy Attorney General. Deputy Attorney General. The guy who is going to contest against him, he was removed. He was struck off. And how did they strike it off? They just went and crossed the pit. And they said, you're not from this village. The guy and others had to literally walk to the vice chairman of NRM, Alhaji Moses Kyungu, to his home. To his home.
To plead.
They went to petition him because he didn't know what was happening. And when he called them, they defended themselves that these guys are lying. And when they said they are lying, that they are not members of their respective villages, Chigongo offered to give them transport, assign them people, and soldiers, and vehicles, and go to the villages and ask the villagers, is Andrew a born of this village? And we want evidence. Let them say yes or no. At that point when he said that, they said, okay, Chairman, let us see what to do. And in the next 30 minutes, they called him and said, sir, we have corrected the error. It was an error. 7 people have petitioned me. They came here. I wanted to interview them. But they said, no. Now that the Vice Chairman, Alhaji Moses Kyungu, has solved it, if we go ahead and expose these guys, they're going to take it upon, they're going to use it as a grudge, They're going to take it on us. So they said, you leave it. Well, I'm just actually telling you I wouldn't have said it. But 7 people came to me. Their names struck out. This has happened in NRM. They say that that constituency, the current MP is a big man, is a minister. He gives this for money. They gave them money. By the way, it was not for free. They gave the money to strike off the contestant. Money. Go ahead.
You see what I'm telling you? So start with that one, plus 3 others that have got very specific direct experiences. And then the 4th one being the big national one, where I know senior people in NRM are not happy, saying that because this particular individual is a big national figure, does not mean therefore that their opponent should be denied the rights. In any case, this very particular individual, even if they are challenged at the primaries, they are unlikely to lose their position, which is almost like Kawempe. That in Kawempe by-election, you knew that however much you beat up people, NRA is not going to win. But number 2, how many times you lose a by-election in Kawempe, you're not going to lose government because you've got a huge majority. So why do you make it a matter of life and death? But I think that is the level of impunity that this supervising NRM regime has nationally. But as I say, the credits they have is that they've been in power for 40 years. They've accumulated military power. They've accumulated civic authority. They've accumulated national political influence. And in many cases, they've intimidated people. And finally, the opposition has been now so malnourished that they're relatively in a minority.
You are malnourished, you guys.
Yeah.
When you look at Makena, he is malnourished. When you look at his wife, Betty Among, the minister, she's malnourished. When I look at Robert Mao, he's malnourished. When I look at who is this one? There are many malnourished opposition members.
Those are individuals. They're not representation of opposition.
The parties themselves are even more malnourished.
And you realize that I talked about that. So Jim McKenna is not leader for UPC, so he's a wrong representation of UPC. In any case, he's Milton Obote's son, so you don't expect him to go hungry. You know, he's a boy who was born in State House. You know, or at least born in Mulago Hospital, by the way. He was born in Mulago Hospital.
From Mulago Hospital to State House?
Yes, to State House. So you don't expect him to be malnourished. And he's been in the State House twice. And you know how State House can be, okay. Even Andrew Bote, when a modest thing, you don't go hungry, at least to be fair. So where are we? NRA is absolutely in charge across the country. And with the fear of the basement and with the amount of money that is involved, one of the things I'm seeing that is sending many people to stand in NRA is because people realize some of those contestations, that if you want political power, since Museveni is not about to retire until another conversation we have, you know, you could as well just go and play in. So if you want to remain relevant as a 35-year-old, join NRA if you want to go to parliament. Because through them, you know, Jat will not come for you. Through them, you'll not be whipped. And if you're a good boy or a good girl, your name is not going to be struck up. And so long as you speak nicely, Tango Doi will come and wait for you to receive you. So one, you'll go in as a parliamentary candidate, you know. Number two, you'll be financed. Number three, you'll be given all the support from the RDC to the DPC to all the national money, to the DSO, yes, including PDM. You know, it will support you to make sure that, quote, you win. So there are more people going into NRM for that reason. So many other Ugandans, and that's part of the reason why a previous interview I had with you when we're discussing Pan-Africanism, I am concerned about this question of ideology, where I don't know how many young Ugandans are genuinely committed to this thing. So they said that, look, this is my position on education, this is my position on health, this is my position on African unity, and I'll stick to that position regardless of whether or not I know Ochieno or Irumba, or I find myself in company of the people whom I don't necessarily agree with on many other issues, but this one is a fact. So that's part of the problem. So really, NRA has now sucked in, you know, everybody who wants to survive politically. Now that said, you also remember that this is something that has happened over a 40-year period. So children and grandchildren of UPC don't know anything else but the status quo. They don't go to the status quo because it's nice. They go to the status quo because it's what is there. And they go to the status quo because it's what is there to give them a guarantee of a livelihood tomorrow. And whether that guarantee is jobs, access, or sometimes that guarantee is perception.
Social protection.
There's some, including perception. Some people actually think that when I go to NRA, Chigongo will smile with me, and when Chigongo smiles with me, you know, there'll be money. And it's not necessarily the case that Chigongo will even recognize them, you know. So that's part of the problem. So that's a bit of human nature. But then, come to the opposition. What has happened? Not only is it that we now have such a huge, sizable number of opposition political parties, and all of which are reasonably credible in my eyes, credible, you know. But I have argued that in Africa, the most urgent thing we need is leadership. And in this country, Uganda, I think the most urgent thing we also need is leadership. And that politically, I don't think we need more political parties. I think we need more leadership. So whether that leadership emerges from NRA or from the the opposition, is unlikely to emerge from NRM because the NRA's rulership of 40 years has provided the situation in which people are now about themselves, me, myself, and I, rather than a direction for our country or indeed for our communities. So that should come from the opposition. But in opposition in which we have more opposition leaders and political parties and people clamoring for position rather than leadership in terms of ideas, it becomes unfortunate. So, where are we? FDC is now split three-way. It started very, very vibrantly 20 years ago, though. So, we saw Mugisha Muntu's ANT split out of FDC.
It started with the Betkamias.
Yeah, actually, come to think, yeah.
It's called the Federal Alliance.
Betkamia's break-off from actually now four-way.
Yeah.
Thank you for that correction.
Federal Alliance, Mugisha Muntu's ANT.
Yeah.
Now SJ's PFF.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so 4 organizations out of that. But number 2, which is an important point, is then out of that, BCJ is now a shell of the leader that we had 20 years ago. But to his credit, BCJ is now a prisoner, unacceptably a prisoner under NRA. Mr. Museveni and his entire bunch of so-called liberators should feel ashamed. That guy shouldn't be in prison, whatever it is. That's their comrade. I don't agree with BCJ and Museveni and you guys, NRA guys who went to the bush. I reject you guys completely. But all of you guys, including Tumina that you're referring to, these are Ugandan citizens. None of these people deserve to be mistreated by anybody. Kizza Besigye does not deserve the treatment that he's received. But anyway, the guy is now older, and so that's where he is. DP, you're taunting my brother Norbert Mao that is looking very handsome and very not hungry. So DP has got his own issues. The other opposition political party is NUP. It's interesting, you and I were having a conversation before we came on air about the vibrancy of NUP 12 months ago, or rather at the last election. I still want to say that they're still a relevant political opposition. And maybe, as you said at the beginning, they might accuse the state for contributing to their current state, including their locked-in delegates conference. But I'm generally quite surprised that, like you, my expectations of a delegates conference, and the way I know it in UPC, and the way I know it in the Labour Party, which are my sister parties, and the way I know it with the ZANU-PF, whose national conference I've attended, the way I know of ANC as the closer sister parties that I've engaged with at that kind of level. The delegates conference is the culmination party. It is where people come from across the country. You've gone through the process from the lowest unit of elections and the debate to the highest national level of elections, and also debate in terms of policies. And so I would have expected that in NUP. Now, how it happened, I am not particularly sure. And how it happened, unfortunately, is not a representation of what I would like to see as a political party, as a delegates conference, a political party that may be the party of government tomorrow.
In your view, Comrade Ochieno, did we have successful delegates conferences in the name of National Unity Platform and Democratic Party?
I don't know, but because you see, they're different. In DP's case, at least, it would appear the issue was about some of the formalities in terms of representation, but it was seemingly possibly close to national. But again, if you go into the details of DP, I don't know which delegates came from Tororo. I don't know which delegates came from Nagongara. But to be granted, you don't have to have delegates and representations in every constituency unless you want to fight. So NUP's was much more closed, and DP's was much more open. You would have said that DP is slightly much more representative than NUP, although it looked slightly much more chaotic. UPC I was coming to realize I was talking about opposition political parties. In UPC's case, we are an intact political party. The difference is at a leadership level only. And that is Ochieno is occupying the party headquarters by force and with tacit support by the state. And Walubiri is occupying the influence of our Milton Obote Foundation, which is our financial wing of the party. And
Walubiri is occupying that?
He is basically the chair of the trustee, but also is sort of being backed by.
But he's with Ochieno.
By the interest. He's not with Ochieno. He's in his own mini grouping. But they control that influence.
The Milton Obote Foundation is under Walubiri, not under Jim Ochieno.
No, yes, that is true. Except that the Ochieno, Milton Obote Foundation is the foundation under which Uganda House Investments owns and controls Uganda House.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I was asking, who's in charge of that?
Yes.
Who's in charge of that? First answer me.
I'm giving you the context. And so the financial wing of the foundation, which is Uganda House Investments, controls Uganda House on behalf of the party. And Uganda House Investments, therefore, is responsible for the 6th floor, which is the party headquarters. The party headquarters is mandated to be a space given to the party by the foundation. Although the foundation
be renting from.
No, it's given. We don't rent it because we own the foundation. It's a bit of a confusing thing. We politically own the foundation, but legally the foundation is independent. And the trustees of the foundation is chaired by Peter Walubiri. So Ochieno controls Uganda House, which he entered by force by chasing Olaro Tunu. So he controls Uganda House, and the issue that members have been asking is, why hasn't Peter Walubiri and Milton Obote Foundation sought to evict Ochieno from the 6th floor? Maybe they don't want a political fallout. Maybe there's some self-interest. I believe there's self-interest. I believe there's politics in it. And I believe both Jimmy and Peter Walubiri want to enjoy the status quo. They want to, no, they're not necessarily, but they want to enjoy the status quo because they're benefiting from the confusion at the expense of our party members and at the expense of the country, particularly the country, because this country needs a political alternative leadership to Museveni, and that they expect it to come from Uganda People's Congress, and that it cannot come from Uganda People's Congress when our leadership is mixed up the way it is at the moment. So in other words, as we prepare for elections, UPC, which is the clear alternative in terms of issues and ideas and our track record, is that messed up. The rest of the other opposition are neither here nor there, equally messed up. And Mr. Museveni is enjoying the show.
Are you telling us that UPC is better organized than UPC, than NUP and DP?
No, I did not say so. I said as a singular organization, and I want to say this to the viewers. The only political organization today, political party in Uganda, where you can mobilize all its members and put them under one roof, and their vision for the political organization will remain the same, are UPC members. They will quarrel over Ochieno, they will disagree over Walubiri, they will have a view over Ochieno, but they are clearly UPC, except those agents who've joined UPC and they're directly serving Mr. Museveni's interest. Those ones will speak whatever double language, double dash thing, but they think about their pockets and their tummy. Now, the rest of the other political parties, I cannot speak for them, but I can tell you confidently that Uganda People's Congress, we are as clear as we were before. I cannot say that of DP today. I definitely cannot say that of NUP based on some of the things that I saw much more recently. That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay.
And I'm very confident about it. Yes.
Thank you. So finally, let's speak some. Are there some lessons you as UPC man you pick from the preparedness of NRM, but also the delegates conference of NUP and DP? Are there some positive lessons?
It's very unfortunate.
In 1 minute.
I'm not clear. I'm not sure whether I know the circumstances under which the NUP delegates conference happened the way it is, and I've not gone to the details whether or not they should have been a much more broader, larger, and the circumstance. But I would like to see delegates conference being representative. But from that point perspective, neither here nor there. In any case, leading to that, some of the members of NUP, there's still an argument in NUP as to whether or not this organization is owned legally by the Chagulanyos or not. This business of going to buy a political party down in Nkrumah Road, you know, is as terrible.
Nasser Road.
And Nasser Road is, as I said, Nkrumah Road is as terrible as sometimes people going to buy documents from Nasser Road, you know, and that's a problem. Now, in DP's case, quite clearly the fact that DP has been as compromised as UPC, where there are two conflicting positions. It's the same thing with FDC actually, because the Besigye group accused the Amoriat National group also having been compromised. So these are things which are going on in those political parties. Now, finally on NRA, NRA is enjoying the power of incumbency nationally as a leader, as a leadership. Two, the power of the military and the power of the money that they've brought into policy, where policy now is about me, myself, and I. Those of us who were joining political parties 35, 40 years ago because of convictions as young people. People are now joining these political organizations as which one is going to give me the nearest access to parliament and money and a job. And that's part of the problem. But then, because you talked about Nambole, I was a delegate, official delegate to the Delegates Conference of the British Labour Party in 1999, their centenary Delegates Conference in Bournemouth. I can tell it's a huge privilege and it's a huge lesson. Delegates conferences, by the time you go in as a delegate from a constituency, you know, where you're very clear in terms of what you get opportunities to debate and to challenge and to do all these other things. Now, the power of who becomes your delegates are quite clearly granted by, in this case, the constituency conference, and they're almost impossible to be influenced from the top. But here, where you find people sitting at party headquarters and trying to instruct who and trying to persuade, it doesn't augur well, because you're asking them about lessons. The last delegates conferences of Uganda People's Congress, before we got into this message, we find delegates conferences. So these things have happened here before. We've seen delegates conferences where we adopt policies. If you look at the 1968-69 delegates conference, where we're debating big things like the question of the national service, questions of the move to the left, and questions of the common man's charter. Those are big thinking conversations with serious delegates that you cannot compare with some of the trips to the roadside hotels that are happening these days.
Comrade Ochieno from UPC, don't you think that NRM is better organized this time around, better than ever, just because of the dwindling of the opposition parties? Because, honestly speaking, in my analysis, I see that NRM in the last elections, 2021, the opposition were there, especially the NUP and FDC, and they gave them a run for their money. But this time round, and at that time when the opposition, especially NUP with the Bob Wayne, who had come with a wave, when they were going up, NRM obviously was going down. Now it looks to me like NUP and FDC and all of these opposition parties are going like this, and the NRM curve is climbing. So these 2026 elections, I think Museveni is even going to be going with his cup of coffee. He sits here, he takes his coffee, he engages some voters, he leaves for the next destination.
It is very tempting to agree with you, because as of...
You need to be honest.
For us in UPC, we don't tell anything but the truth. And we tell nothing else but the truth. And in any case, we are the only ones who do things for God and my country. I would not
sure about that.
Oh, yes.
Then it means Jim McKenna is doing things for God and his country. Jim McKenna.
No, Jim McKenna is not a UPC leader. So don't contradict ourselves. Jim is not UPC president. I don't know what Jimmy is doing. So
okay, answer that question.
So, but as a party, that's what we do. And if Jimmy were to be party leader, that's what I would expect him to do. But some of Jimmy's conducts are not consistent with the values of the Uganda Congress. Look, so I was trying to say that...
analysis about
so
going down.
As of June today, NRA seems to be very stable. It seems to be very attractive, as I said earlier, for various reasons. And Mr. Museveni, I notice it, is popular enough for some NRA representative, for almost every NRA representative to want to associate with his photograph. I see that happening. And sometimes I find it in some very poorly serviced areas like Zombo, serviced areas like Maracha, poorly serviced areas like Kotido, extremely struggling citizens having Mr. Museveni's photograph, and I say, what a pathetic contradiction and hypocrisy and irony, you know, that poor people now think Museveni is their 10 little gods. But that is fair enough, that is their choice. So from that perspective, NRA is not in a bad state, particularly at a presidency level. But if you want to consider that NRA is doing this thing where Museveni has been making movements around PDM, so-called, Museveni has been campaigning for the last 3 years, and opposition leaders have been in jail, you know, then I don't think it's representative of the reality. But finally, I think it may be too early. We've got still another 6 months. We don't know what NUP is doing on the ground, away from the cameras. We don't know what the other new political organizations are doing on the ground. I think people like PFF, the guys who just broke away from Kizza Besigye, for example, they start with a sizable number of members of parliament and experience. So how much impact they will have is neither here nor there. Besigye is a symbol, and they're still sort of related with them. As far as UPC is concerned, even with the current madness and the fact that some of us engulfed in an unfortunate conversation, UPC's name, thanks to people like myself, you know, the work some of us have done in the last 5 years. When I returned to Uganda to lead the UPC campaigns in October 2020, everything you talk to journalists were saying that, well, UPC is dead. Some people will say, which UPC? Is it Ochieno or Lubiri? And some will tell you that UPC is in bed with Museveni. Today, there's a recognition that UPC is an idea, it cannot die. So I think UPC is in a better position, even in this mess, than where it was. So my view is that in the next 3 months, when campaigns begin and issues begin to tickle on the grounds, the wave of the alternative opposition will come higher. But whether or not it will have high enough to deal with the threshold is another matter. Is another matter. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Comrade Joseph Ochieno, the former spokesperson of the UPC party.
Yes.
And the permanent spokesperson of the late Milton Obote, the former president of Uganda. My name is Andrew Irumba Katusaga, and this is Andrew Irumba Live. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for your time. Amen.